Happy Monday, kitty cats. And if you are listening to this program today, then I know that you are a person who cares about their liberty. It's also a pretty good chance that you're pretty tired of waiting around for political change, tired of being duped by political parties and politicians filling you with hope and then never coming through. Well, guess what? If you're ready to take matters into your own hands, then I want to tell you about an amazing community called the Nomad Network. This is the #1 community for liberty-minded people just like you who want to create freedom in their lifetime by focusing on entrepreneurship, investment, and income mobility. I have personally been involved with this group for some time now. I hopped on because I got into a stage in my life where I realized that I was ready to take things to the next level. I was sick of just talking about my liberty, and I wanted to take action to actually achieve that liberty. And the Nomad Network has been an incredible hub for doing just that. You got people in there posting their W's, talking about their businesses, helping each other out, hiring each other for jobs. It truly is an amazing network. It is a little bit of that building the arc that we talk about so much, building that next pathway, building that community so that we can thrive while the rest of the world just burns around us or does whatever it's going to do. Whether you already have an existing business idea or you just want to network with like-minded people, the Nomad Network is the place for you, and you can join for free right now by heading over to www, and you do need the www, by the way, www.nomadnetwork.app/lion, no S, lion. Take control of your own future. Seize your own liberty. Join the Nomad Network today.
We need to empower people with not just the philosophical tools, but the inspiration to break free from the system.
Welcome to the flagship Lions of Liberty podcast, your weekly dose of education, inspiration, and real-world application from the top minds in the liberty movement.
If you want liberty, we need to be better leaders, better husbands, better fathers, better friends, better businessmen. We need to be better people.
Here's your host, your guide, your shining beacon of liberty, Marc Claire.
Live love and live free.
All right, kitty cats, here with me today, a very special guest. He's a man who has done a lot of our amazing artwork, especially for the big debate month we've done. I'm certain you have seen his stuff out there on the internet if you're at all in the liberty space. I'm very pleased to welcome Danny. I'm going to call you the CEO, all right? The CEO of TopLobsta. Danny, welcome to Lions of Liberty. Are you ready to roar?
I am ready to roar, Mark. Let's do this.
All right. I had a little bit of a feeling you would. And we kind of connected, I don't know, probably just like 3 or 4 months ago. I think I'd been seeing your art a lot earlier than that, when Josh started his show and everything. And I'm not even sure how exactly we first connected. I don't know if I reached out to you. I think I reached out to you because I wanted to do some artwork for some debates that I was doing. And then, it just spiraled from there. And I really love your artwork. I love all the images you produce. They're both creative and compelling and all those wonderful things. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you got into that aspect of things. But first, I want to learn a little bit more about you, where you come from. I know we were talking about before the show, you're from Brooklyn and looking to get out, which we'll also get into. But just take it from wherever you want and just guide us on your journey a little bit and let us know kind of where this whole weird liberty stuff kind of started to fit its way into your life.
Sure. So, damn, I just did the sure Josh thing, but all right.
It's rubbing off on you, man.
Yeah, I know that guy.
Okay, sure.
Sure. So yeah, I'm actually from Brooklyn my whole life. I was born in Coney Island, grew up in Coney Island, and I recently moved out, but not too far, maybe 15 minutes away. I was apolitical my entire life. I was more into the sports side of things and kind of just ignoring the political realm until it kind of seeks you out. I don't know if you had the same kind of moment, but yeah, I guess for me, it was the Trump moment. So I'm sort of new to this area. And the things that were going on, like up until the election with Hillary Clinton, that kind of started to shake me. And I said, I need to start paying attention here because people are exhibiting weird behavior. The people that I trusted or had, I guess you can call it faith or that you thought that they were smarter than they are. They start to act strange because there was some kind of weird glitch in the matrix. Something happened. So I started paying attention from there, and it kind of led me into this, like maybe I'm a Republican because obviously the other side is kind of weirding me out. And I quickly realized, no, I'm not a Republican. And I said, maybe I'm conservative. No, definitely not conservative. And so now I'm just doing this deep dive into the intellectual dark web of, Dave Rubin and Jordan Peterson, which is where you get the name TopLobsta. I'll explain that in a second. And I'm walking my dog one day, and I kind of just playing YouTube, listening to something, and the next recommended video that came up was Dave Smith on Joe Rogan, and it was a clip. I forgot what he was talking about, but it was they were talking about something to do with like social libertarian issues, and right away I kind of like, I'm like, I'm not so sure, because if you're on the right, and you probably see this, if you talk to someone that's on the right and you start telling them like pure libertarian ideas, they kind of like, they'll view you as a leftist almost, even though, because they don't understand the spectrum of what it's coming from. So I was ready to write him off, but Dave
Rubin
Rubin
works both
said,
ways too. I mean, you come at a leftist with libertarian ideas, and they just see you as a from the right or Republican or whatever.
Absolutely. So I was very much in that dynamic. But what's interesting is it worked against itself, because I see a guy like Dave Rubin as still sort of on the right, but I'm not really sure where to put him. But they're like, we have to be open to ideas and hear them out and, do this honest debate. And at the time, that was like the cool thing. So I said, I'm going to hear this guy out. And I listened to him. It was maybe 20-minute clip, and just changed my mind. And I was like, fuck, all this stuff that I've been thinking for the last couple of years and my entire life is probably wrong. And I have to readjust and reframe my worldview, because whatever arguments he was making were so compelling to me that it really just flipped me on my head. So that's kind of my origin story as far as the political side goes.
Yeah, you're not the first person at all that I've encountered that kind of got into this whole sphere in the first place because of Donald Trump, just because of his existence and his presence in the political world. What was it for you? I mean, you're from New York, so you've been familiar. I mean, obviously he's a nationally known figure, but yeah, I feel like people from that area kind of know Trump a little bit more. And what were your first thoughts when you first saw him running for president, saw him saying, I don't know, outlandish things, but maybe more so saw people around you reacting in what you described as like a weird way? Can you get into that a little bit more? And I think we kind of all know what you're talking about, though, how people started to, and we've all experienced this. I've certainly experienced this with many friends and family, how the reaction to Trump was so much different than the reaction to any sort of like normal politician.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you follow TopLobsta on Twitter, I'm very much a shit poster. And I kind of gravitate to these tower gang types and like, the guys that are shit posting. So I like that. I like that sort of attitude, that brashness. I've always been like that. Whether I played college baseball, and that was like my style, or whatever you're doing. If I'm boxing someone, my style is to like antagonize you and make you make a mistake. I think that there's something genius in that. So I saw him doing something like that, and I was like, oh, this is kind of funny, but who gives a shit about politics anyway? Then things start to get like very weird socially, because people start to choose sides. In my job, I remember telling a guy, I said, hey, this guy Trump is polarizing. And he yelled at me, and he's like, polarizing? He's the devil. But I'm like, polarizing just means like he's separating, black and white. Well,
his response actually proved that he was polarizing.
Exactly. So I'm like, I don't know how to respond to this guy. So I walk away, and I don't have the arguments set up to even discuss this with these people, because I'm not paying attention. And one of the defining moments, I'll never forget it in my life. I used to work on the tracks, building the subway system. Like, we'll build new tracks and stuff like that. And it's the middle of the night on election day 2016, probably like 2 a.m. or something. And from down the track, you hear a guy just scream like a guttural scream. And yeah, I dropped the tool, and we're like, fuck, someone's injured. Like, it's possible. It's very dangerous. So we all look down, and we're like, yo, what's going on? And he's like, Trump won. And I'm like, oh my God,
you made that sound?
Yeah, it was a gutter, like right from his soul. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I need to drop everything, start reading whatever I can read, and figure out what the fuck is going on. Can we curse? Yeah, we curse here.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, because so at
probably
that
like
moment,
my first, like, I don't know, maybe 7 episodes way back in the day, I was like, I got to keep this show clean and blah, blah. And then at some point I was like, well, no, I want to be myself, and myself is going to curse when it's appropriate. I'm not like as foul mouthed as my partner, Brian McWilliams, but sometimes you need to drop an F-bomb. So drop away. Yeah,
that was, I think that was a good moment to drop F, because man, I'm telling you, these people, the way he was reacting was like, I think his rationale later on was that they were going to bring back slavery or something like that. I'm like, okay. So at that point, I'm like, I have to figure out what's going on, because these guys are acting strange. my family's acting strange in a way that I've never seen before. So that really, I think that was probably the moment that I started to do this deep dive down the rabbit hole politically.
I think there's something about Trump that a lot of people just have trouble comprehending. Again, a lot of it comes down to like what I'd call, I don't know, you might want to call it New York humor, or maybe it's more East Coast humor. I mean, like I grew up on the East Coast, and there are like, it's just, and a lot of my friends back in Los Angeles were from the East Coast too. So we have a certain way of like talking to each other, a certain way of joking about things. It's basically, in-person shit posting. It's just how you kind of interact and communicate with friends or even people you just met. It's just kind of how it is. And I think a lot of people that didn't grow up around that take humor in a different way. They don't even understand that kind of humor. They can't even comprehend it as humor. And I think that's a lot of what, I mean, Trump is that times a million. So he was, New York or East Coast humor on steroids. But a lot of people just they were never exposed to that humor. Now, if they didn't grow up around people that talk that way to each other, then you throw Trump in there and put him on the national spotlight and put him into politics. And suddenly it's like, becomes this whole offensive thing. But I think people like you and me, like I've never seen Trump say something that I even could understand being actually offended by. Never once, but I'm not.
That's understandable. So like you have like the people from Williamsburg that have, that I understand like how he can shock these people because maybe they're sheltered or they don't really talk like that. But like I said, I was working in one of the most dangerous construction fields you can do. And the things we say to each other on that field are just ungodly. So when this guy comes in, he's saying mild stuff on Twitter, I expect to laugh at it, but they just didn't find it funny. So I was like, this is very strange. And I still don't know what happened or where to put it, but the world has changed. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was something, and it seems like this thing with Trump, it just sort of parlayed itself right into COVID. I mean, one thing just rolled right into the other. And before you know it, we're all talking about this disease, and the lines are almost exactly divided in the same polarized way that they were with Trump. Is that something that you continue to see around those same family members and same friends as these last 4 or 5 years kind of played out?
Yeah, there's a strong overlap between how they feel about the virus, how they react if they're wearing a mask outside, things like that. Is like even a lot of the social behaviors that people exhibit. I'd be like, I can tell you how you vote. Just by seeing how you're reacting to things. And it's really sad because what a predictable world, and it also puts us in a unique position where people don't know where to place us, what box to put us in. So I like to use that to really screw with some people too sometimes.
All right, guys. Well, you have seen it. You have felt it. It is clear that inflation is running rampant. And this, of course, has a lot of people more than ever looking to invest in cryptocurrencies. But one issue that can come with that is, of course, you got to pay taxes on those gains. Well, guess what? That is where our friends at iTrust Capital come in. With iTrust Capital, you can actually trade and earn on cryptocurrencies completely tax-free. That's right. By doing so within an IRA. IRAs, Roth IRAs are one of the best tax structures out there, one of the best deals. I've had an IRA for years, and now I know I can go to my friends at iTrust Capital to start a cryptocurrency IRA. And it's not just cryptocurrency. You can also self-trade physical gold and silver in an IRA with iTrust Capital. It is really just the best deal going. You can invest in cryptocurrencies and precious metals for completely tax-free gain. Whether you hold these assets for the long term or you buy and sell with the market, iTrust Capital's IRA account provides the absolute lowest transaction costs and transparent pricing in the industry by far. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pause this podcast, or maybe you can multitask. I don't know. I can multitask. I want you to visit itrustcapital.com to get your completely free insider's report on Bitcoin and crypto IRAs. This costs you absolutely nothing, and this report will have absolutely everything you need to know about the fees, security, 24/7 access, and so much more. And I want you to use promo code LIONS to get your first month for free. That's promo code LIONS. Again, head over to itrustcapital.com, use promo code LIONS, or head over to lionsofliberty.com. Find the show notes for today's episode. Click on that link, get that free report, and start investing for your future today. I want to circle back to the TopLobsta moniker. as you mentioned earlier, being inspired by Jordan Peterson. I've read his books. I went through a huge Jordan Peterson phase like 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe it's not a phase. I don't know. I still really like him, but I do think he's, I don't know, lost a bit of his panache in the last year or so.
I agree.
Since his comeback of sorts. And I don't want to go into a whole thing on Jordan Peterson, but I just, as a little sidebar, I mean, I saw him tweeting about like the lockdowns the other day, and I was just, all I could think of was like, where have you been? But it was almost like 2019, March 2020 kind of talk. It's like, maybe we shouldn't do 15 days to slow the spread. I'm like, are you in a time warp? Like,
are you part of the Libertarian Party National?
What are you, the Libertarian Party? But to give us a little bit, I mean, like, I know the whole story of Jordan Peterson's lobster thing, but maybe you can kind of do a little summary of what that meant to you and why that led you to create this sort of TopLobsta moniker.
Yeah, so the first chapter, he talks about how humans and lobsters share the same the same neurological system, and how we react to dopamine. So the lobster will get into a fight with another lobster, and when he wins, he stands up taller and straighter, becoming the top lobster. Yeah, stand up straight with your shoulders back. I think that's the name of the chapter.
I felt myself doing it just now, just as you're saying.
Yeah, me too. I'm slouching, like better. Yeah. Yeah, it does have it gives you a better outlook on life, like even just the small physical things that you do. So I started to take what he was saying there to heart. And I think I first used it as, it wasn't really a brand. It was maybe like a screen name or something like that. It was something I was just using as a moniker. My initial Twitter account was TopLobsta, and then that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I started using that as a fun play at what we do on the internet, because it's like crack, man. We're on there for dopamine hits, and that's really
this is the dopamine. I mean, this is the source. Or especially you go on Twitter. I mean, that's a direct. You're pumping it right into your veins.
Put that right into my arm. Yeah. So I figured that's a great place. Like Facebook and Twitter is a great place to use this moniker and start this name, because I think it just does fit. Like, we use it, our neurological systems are tapped into the social media stuff, and we're doing it for the likes, and the likes are just giving us dopamine hit. So that's initially why I use it. But there's also obviously the bigger meaning, which is stand up straight with your shoulders back and kind of present yourself well, even though I don't know, maybe my brand does do that, but I'm not sure. So from there, I was in my job. This is like doing a small segue of how I started to create clothing and draw graphically. I was at my job, and there was a need for t-shirts. People wanted some graphic t-shirts. So I started to do that, and people were buying it. They liked my stuff, and I segued it into things that I thought were interesting. So I started drawing about like liberty topics, and like the legalized freedom hat. That's one of the
I'm wearing it right now for the video viewers.
Yeah, or the disobey your local timer, which he's gone, but still holds up.
I got that one in my closet too. Or well, mine has Newsom on it, but yeah,
he's still there, unfortunately.
Yep.
Yeah,
but I'm not, so it's okay.
I think you made the right move, brother. Did you decide to leave because of that recall, or was that in the books already?
How do I work this one? There were let's just say there were a number of factors, but yeah, I mean they were not related to the recall, but it's certainly I guess this is the good timing kind of thing,
Yeah.
Especially with, I mean, they've already passed. It was almost immediately he started announcing, state mandates for vaccines for venues and everything. Then just the other day, Los Angeles, which was inevitable, they passed vaccine passports. So I think a month from now, you're going to need a vaccine passport to go to any indoor anything, basically, except for grocery stores, because apparently it doesn't spread there. But you need a vaccine passport for any kind of bar, restaurant, gym, anything, or large outdoor venues. So even outdoor concerts, you need it for that. And it's going to be over the whole state, and it's going to be over the whole country and world in many ways, with I think pockets of resistance. And we'll get into that, because that's obviously a big part of why you are in the process of leaving where you are in New York as well.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be in the whole world. Like, well, my friends that are in New York, they're like, well, why are you leaving? And I give them the reasoning, and they're like, well, you don't think that's going to spread to where you're at, where you're going to be? And I'm like, yeah, I think it will eventually. But I think the idea is to set yourself up in a place where it doesn't quite matter. I'm not going to Saipan, but I'm going to, I'm trying to go somewhere with acreage where at least I could be somewhat self-sustaining and just away from it enough where it doesn't touch me every single day. as it does here. Yeah, I just can't stand it, dude.
Yeah, well, let's dig into this a little more then. Like, when did you make the decision to leave? I mean, you grew up there your whole life, right? I mean, I can tell by the accent you're from there. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, when did it? Like, I'm not from Los Angeles. I'm not from California. I'm from the East Coast. So, even though I had lived in California for almost 20 years, it was always I had never had the idea that I would live there the rest of my life, even though I ended up living there for quite a long time because I ended up just really getting into the TV industry and making a lot of connections, a lot of friends, and it just became the place to stay until it became not the place to stay. But it never felt like leaving my home, even though I'd been there so long. So what are some of the things that started to change your mind on actually leaving the place that you grew up, that you've actually really spent your entire life?
Yeah. I can't say that I've loved New York. I never really liked it. It's
that helps.
Yeah, it's even before it was political. It's not like a new thing where I discovered libertarianism and now I have to get away from this fascist society. No, I've always felt like trapped in and constricted in this place, but it never occurred to me like I can just leave. And I guess in a way without COVID and without what's going on, I'm not so sure that I would have pulled the trigger, because I wasn't happy here, but my family's here. My friends are here. I have a house. I'm established here with a job, all the normal things that keep you in one place. And yeah, I'm kind of glad that they went full fascist and whatever the hell they're doing here, because in a way, I'm not making the decision,
Right.
I'm just leaving. But we actually, me and my wife started talking about it seriously, about leaving here during the George Floyd riots last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we took a road trip down and we're like, let's get out of here. Because on my truck route where I drive, I used to drive through the city on this route. I would drive the morning after and still see some embers like burning from the night before, from whatever the hell they were doing. I'm like, this is no way to live. There's no way to, this is not a place to raise children. It's time to step out of your comfort zone and kind of do something new as much as you can. So
how bad were those riots in your area in particular on the ground? Because I actually, coincidentally, I just happened to be in Mexico last year when that was happening, not for the same reasons, but I was, and I was so glad that I was here and not in Los Angeles, where, half the city, I shouldn't say half the city, it was very localized in certain areas, but where there was a lot of this violence and stuff. But I mean, I saw a lot of the videos coming from New York, and it was just like, I couldn't believe some of the stuff I was seeing. But it's so hard to know, how much of it is just, the 3 clips you saw from these 3 places maybe, and how widespread it really was. But what was your view of all that from the ground?
Yeah, that kind of stuff was happening in the city. That's where like the densely populated areas. Where I live now, I live on like this kind of like island peninsula that's like off of, like, I guess it's near Coney Island, but off the Belt Parkway. So it's a residential area, and the people that live here are kind of like, they're either city workers or they just go to work, they come home and they're chill. It's a nice area. And so they didn't really touch anything here. Actually, in my area, they wrote on the street, they wrote freedom on the street. I don't know if you remember when they were writing Black Lives Matter on the street in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to give you an idea, that's what was going on where I live immediately. But outside of it, it depends on the area that you go in. There's pockets in Coney Island. I saw some cars that were burned, but nothing like there were no major movements there. That was just happening in the city. And it seemed like it was happening night after night. And it was happening pretty much throughout the country. Like when we made that road trip, the night before we drove by DC, that was when Trump went out and they were shooting people with rubber bullets and stuff. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we passed by there the next day, and it was like a crazy time to bring 2 babies, across the country. But we're like, let's go see what's going on. And yeah, to bring it back, that's when our initial looking started happening. So we drove to where we thought we want to be and checked it out.
I don't know how old your kids are, but you called them babies, so I assume pretty young.
Yeah.
But how much has having children been a factor in maybe not just your political development, but in this push to, okay, maybe I just didn't like some things in the city before, but now it's about something much greater. Now it's actually about providing a different life for my family, for these little ones who they have no control over what's going on right now, but
Oh, can you repeat that last part? I'm sorry. Yeah, you froze up. Yeah, just for like 3 seconds.
See, this is the Mexico internet, my friends. This is why TopLobsta is my test today. You know, I was asking like kind of how much like having your kids, having like 2 young children factored into this idea of leaving the city, whereas before maybe you just didn't like certain things here and there, but now now there's a situation where your kids have no choice where they grow up, but you have that choice. You can make that choice. So how much of a factor was that?
Yeah, it's probably it's mostly about them. I'll tell you the truth. So they're like right now they're about 1.5 years and 3. So you could imagine. I mean, my son was like maybe 4 months old when we were doing that during those riots. So that was kind of crazy. But yeah, it is all about them. When you have kids, you see what's going on with Dave Smith, and you've seen how he's changed since he's had the babies.
He became a Christian conservative, of course.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a natural thing because you start to really look towards the future and start to bargain with the future more when you have children. Whereas like before, I'm kind of like, this place sucks, but whatever, we could do whatever we want. But now, yeah, a lot of the things that I'm thinking about for my kids is, especially in this area where I'm at with this house, like I don't have much of a yard, and during COVID, especially when things were locked down, they were shutting down parks. I'm like, what do we do with them?
I had a yard in LA actually. It was made of cement.
Yeah. There is just
I'm not even joking. I had a small little yard area, and it was just cement.
That's what's there. Right over there is just a block of cement, and I'm like, have fun, kids. This is it's no way to live. I was lucky enough where my parents had like they had a backyard, but they bought, I forget what they call them. They're like low income housing, and all of their sisters and brothers bought in this one area. So we had a compound, and it was an amazing way to grow up because I was constantly with my cousins, and we were in an area where it wasn't too crazy. It was just the craziness we were doing. And I kind of want to recreate that, like that community feeling of family or people that you want to be around, and just make the world what I want it, without sheltering them too much. But yeah, to come back to your question, the decision I think has always been about the kids. Once we had the kids, it really put into perspective what we need to do. And I guess the struggle, the push and the pull would be, well, if I leave my job in New York, how will I get a job over there and provide for them there? But if I stay in New York, how will that affect their livelihoods going in the future? Like, I don't want my daughter riding the subway. Yeah. It's just not. I don't care what anyone listening to this thinks. It's not a way to live. You're packed in a like a metal tube with all kinds of people going through Satan's asshole, which is New York City. And then you get off the stop to do what, really? Maybe you're going to work to go back and then to live in your pod. It's like, I don't think this is what life is about. So I'm in search of what it is about. And I kind of want to build the next generation with my kids and see what that can be.
I think it was you that I shared the video of that lady in the subway on New York ripping down all those signs that were like promoting, like, I don't know, really weird shit. Like, look,
yeah.
And I'm no Christian conservative. I'm into some really weird shit myself. But I mean, this is just stuff that's out there on the subway, and it's super hypersexual imagery. And this is a place where everybody goes, children, adults, whatever. And this based Asian lady was up there just ripping these signs down and just screaming. Like, I mean, screaming, but I say screaming, but she was actually being fairly calm about it. But she was saying, like, do you really want this? Do you really want your children seeing this? Do you really want to be around this? And I think it was like her and maybe one person was kind of helping her, and everyone else was just kind of sitting there, like staring at her, like not stopping her, like it almost seemed like they were thinking, like, well, she is kind of right. I'm not going to do this, but maybe she's right. And some other people probably just looking at her like she's nuts. But I was clapping at that video, man. But it represents that this is it's more than about just living in the pod and what have you. I mean, it's like there's a real cultural decay that has gone on, and it's definitely more so in the cities than outside of the cities.
Yeah, and it's been happening for a long time. I remember back maybe when I was like 15, 16 years old, there were some groups of people where I would hang out with them, and, cool people, but I'm like, I don't fit in here. I don't belong here for some reason. And I thought that it was me being weird, but yep. Yeah, exactly.
Gotta love the comments. This is why you got to watch the video, my friends. And if we're not on YouTube, I never know anymore, because half the time we get taken off YouTube or we get strikes. You can always find us on Odyssey. Don't forget, kids.
That's right. I'm contractually obligated to tell you to find them on Odyssey. But Yeah, I mean, I forgot what I was saying.
That's the danger of bringing in the comments. Yeah,
yeah, derailed. So yeah, I was saying you were talking about the cultural decay, and there definitely is. It's been there for a long time, but now I don't know why it's showing its face so prevalently, or maybe it's just come to a boiling point where like we can't hold any longer, and like the old guards died off, so now we're going through this very crazy period of whatever godlessness or whatever you'd like to call it. And but yeah, that's been boiling underneath for a long time, and that subway video is just like that's tame stuff from the things that I've seen in New York.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I like to call this place like Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, just like almost completely. There's a lot of great people here. Don't get me wrong, and there's a lot of great things to do. But
I don't know. I have loads of friends and family in New York, but you know. Okay. I mean, we each make our own choices. I mean, I went there back in last April, and because my wife had never been there, I wanted to take her to just see the city, and it was not the city that I grew up going to all the time. I think I think it was before the show we were talking, but I grew up in Connecticut, and my family's all from the city, so I went to this city to see family, 10, 15 times a year, probably when I was a kid growing up. And then, as a young adult, I would take the train over from Stanford and party probably every other weekend with friends I had in the city. So I love the place. It's a fun place. It's an amazing place. I say it is, but it's more like it was. Cause even when I went there in April, it did not have the same feel, the same vibe, any of what I used to love about the city was totally gone. And I think at the time that I went, there was still like I don't know if it was a formal law curfew, but everything was closed at 10 o'clock, which is like, that's when you're still pre-gaming, like back in my day before you go out at like midnight or something. Like the fact that the city was just dead and shut down at 10 p.m. was just so incredibly sad to me. And it just felt like my last visit. Cause I was just thinking to myself, like, I used to love this place, but I can't think of a reason to come back.
Well, I don't want to be completely unfair to New York, but at that time, if you came last year in April, you said, yeah, that was like,
yeah, it was the end of April, so there might have still been a lot of restrictions in place.
Yeah, they were there for a while, but that was that wasn't a good reflection of what it was, because I remember driving through and the streets are empty, and it's crazy. And like maybe 6th Avenue, 8th Avenue over there usually is just packed with people. But I mean, it has come back since, so there are people out, and what changed for me, the biggest thing that changed for me is that you see the compliance of all of the people, how they're just like part of the Borg. There was, I say this all the time whenever I go on a podcast, but when I drive my route, I pay attention to what the demographic looks like or what they're doing. So if I'm driving through Williamsburg a few months ago, it was 90% mask compliance. Then Fauci's emails came out. You remember with the whole thing we were saying masks don't work. Right. And during that time period, COVID was kind of dying down a little bit and people started to take the masks off. The compliance flipped. So about 10% of people were wearing it. Then they said, oh, wait, there's a Delta variant. And like clockwork, whatever MSNBC was saying, these people put the mask right back on, double mask. And I'm like, I can't live next to these people. They'll do whatever they're told by the corporate press or whatever you like to call it, the cathedral. And if you boil that down to its logical conclusion, it's kind of scary. Because what happens when they tell you that, I don't know, unvaccinated or evil or whatever they feel like telling
There's
you.
There's no when. I mean, that's what they're saying now,
Yeah, but when they start telling you what you should do to them,
mm-hmm.
It's the shades of, it's a cliche, but it's shades of Nazi Germany, because that's kind of what's happening. It's just repeating itself. It's amazing to see people not recognize the pattern.
And maybe people are right that it may chase you anywhere you want to go. Maybe there's no escape anywhere on this planet from it, but there are certainly places and situations that you can put yourself in where you can be less affected by it, or where you have more of an opportunity to be more sovereign, to be less reliant on dealing with people that increasingly are going to look at you as an other, as an enemy, as dirty, unclean, whatever you want to call it. That's the clear direction. It's not even the direction, it's where we are. I mean, it's basically where we are right now. You're already seeing reports of people being denied. I think someone was denied a kidney transplant because they were unvaccinated. I mean, crazy stuff like this. So maybe you can dig into that a little more about why you chose. I'm not even sure if we talked about it in this interview or if it was the off-air part, but I know you are planning to take your family to a totally new location down in Florida. So maybe dig a little into more about that situation and why you chose Florida, why you chose a specific area, other than to be able to, go knock on Tom Wood's door once in a while. So what was the motivation for? Obviously, we know a lot of the political reasons why Florida is appealing, but what are some of the reasons that you guys decided on that?
Yeah, well, before I say that, you actually hit on an interesting subject about the kidney transplant or whatever that was because of the COVID rules. They had to shut that down. But in New York, because of the vaccine mandates, I know you guys have seen the registered nurses and all these other people who have been fired if they don't want the shot. So a couple of days ago, I was actually on Jose Galison's, you know him. I was on his 100th episode. Yeah, and we were having a good discussion. Him, James Gentleman, Reed Coverdale, and we were talking. And my wife screams down just where I'm at.
That's a crew right there. I'm going to check that one out.
Let me finish the story because that was a crew, man. I was in very good company. So my wife screams down. She's like, "Yo, you got to get up here right now." So I was like, "All right, I'll be back, guys." And I go upstairs. My son is he's like not breathing right. He's very raspy. He's having trouble breathing. So I come back down. I'm like, I got to go. I sign off. We don't know what to do. He's a year and a half, and my wife she's an RN, but we're still like, the fuck. It was the craziest thing. So we called the ambulance, and we were like, should we drive him to the hospital? Should we wait? We don't know. And they took a long time to get to us, and they finally did get to us. And my son is okay now. He's breathing all right. He had like I forgot what they call it, but it's basically the cold for kids, and sometimes it can constrict breathing in your airway. Gotcha. So we're in the ambulance and they're like, sorry it took us so long. There's nobody working. Wow. And and my wife was like, what's that mean? And I'm like, I get it. Listen, if nurses they're making, I don't know, $40, $45 an hour, they're going to just quit their job because they don't want the shot. What do you think? Someone that's making $15 an hour, you think they're going to accept this for that kind of pay? Right. So no. Yeah. So this is how widespread and far reaching this bullshit is, that it already has touched me 100 different ways, no homo, but it has already touched me. And this last thing, I'm just like, it really solidified, my need to just leave. So yeah, we, to answer your original question, we found a place in Florida. It's near the Villages where the old people are, or where Gene Epstein does his Soho Forum down there sometimes. I don't know if you're familiar.
I know the area. We actually bounced to Florida for similar reasons, prospecting reasons, right after that New York City trip. It was one big whirlwind. So yeah, I know that area pretty decently well.
Yeah, so it's like if you go towards Ocala, you got a lot of farmland and open space like that, and you can get it at a decent price. So, and I have family there. I have family in Orlando, of course, because I'm Spanish. So that's where all the Spanish people go. So we were down there and we were looking at land, and then it turned into something else because I guess I've red-pilled my parents to the point where they understand what's going on. They're not where I'm at, and they probably will never be where I'm at, but they understand the imminent danger and the craziness that's going on. And I've got them to agree to sell their house and come down with me. So we bought.
Awesome.
Yeah, it could be awesome. We'll see how it turns
out. We'll see, yeah. You never know.
I'll let you know. Well, the idea is a wise man always told me never move in with your parents. So that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we bought a plot of land that's big enough to have two houses. So we have one house on it, and a
huge wall separate.
Yes, it's going to be big and beautiful, and the good ones can stay.
I'm sure there are good people on both sides of that wall.
Yeah, I'm sure. So we've got one house that's built, and that's the one that me and my wife and children will live in. And then like down the road, because we have a 10-acre property there, down the road is another house that's built, but we're going to extend it and do whatever we need to do to it. So that's what we're doing right now. And we also picked the land strategically because there's maybe 20 acres to each side of it that are empty. If I want to buy up later, or if some libertarian friends or maybe some family want to buy up like a couple acres next to me. And I don't know. We're going to see where that goes in the future. But I think I hope it's the best move, because I want to keep the people that matter to me close. And have space around me for my kids to grow, and for, maybe for us to expand, and we'll see what we do. I know that a lot of people from New Hampshire have been, you know how it is. Come to the Free State Project, that kind of stuff. But
I know, I've met them. I like them.
Yeah, no, they're great people. I don't mean it's too cold.
Yeah, call me a pussy all you want. That's fine. I'm entitled to say that I'm too cold to go there. I'm not to go there to visit. I've been to Pork Fest a couple times. Love it. Love the libertarians up there. Love the Free State Project people. But guess what? Before I lived in Connecticut, I grew up in Buffalo, New York. All right, I know what cold is. All right, and so I've been through it, and I've been through it enough to know I don't want to live in it. And so it's that simple. So and that's why I don't live. So I will never live somewhere that has snow as a regular feature of my surroundings. That's just the way it's going to be.
A man of my own heart. I said, if I move, I'm never shoveling snow again. Fuck that.
Exactly.
So, yep. and also, I mean, the most important thing to me is family. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a strategic move, Justin. Like Josh says, he goes, he went to Iowa and it's kind of free up there. And like, what was the other one? South Dakota.
Yeah.
Yeah. These kind of people are not going to live in uncomfortable climates and go there just to change the politics and do dumb shit. They're going to go to Texas with Elon Musk, and fuck it up. Yeah. So anyway, I think for me, the most important thing is family. So, that kind of constricts me to a place where my family is either New York or Florida or Puerto Rico. But I don't want to do that. So Florida it is.
Peter Schiff's a big fan, man. I mean, if you can get that mobile income going, eventually you can really cut that tax burden down. But it's something I've considered it as a down the road type of thing. But yeah, I don't think it's quite for me just yet.
I love to own property in Puerto Rico, but I'm not crazy about being landlocked, or not landlocked. I mean, on an island.
Waterlogged, yeah.
Yeah, waterlocked. That kind of creeps me out a little.
All right, friends. Well, you know what doesn't creep me out at all? That is the amazing coffee. You like these transitions? The amazing coffee from our friends at Lorenzotti, Italy. Lorenzotti, Italy is the #1 place for you to stop and order some fine, premium Italian coffees delivered right to your door in these neat little tins. And if that wasn't enough, you get to do so knowing you are helping a sponsor of this program. And if that weren't enough, you get to order using your Lions of Liberty discount code. That discount code is ROAR, and it gets you 10% off your order. So head on over to lorenzotti.coffee and use discount code ROAR for 10% off some fine premium Italian coffees. Yummy, yummy, yummy. One thing I want to get into with you a little bit, and I'm not sure how have you had any kind of like vaccine type mandate stuff that you've encountered in your current work, or do you anticipate that coming down the line at all?
Yeah. So my job, they want to do weekly testing, and I don't even know when they're going to implement that, but I'll tell you the truth, man. I've
been doing that for like over a year while I was in Los Angeles anyway. So that's
like
old news to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like logged out of my job. I do what I got to do. I don't really socialize with the people, and I don't know, whatever they say, but I don't even plan on being there too much longer. So yeah, they want to do that, but the writing's on the wall. The writing's always been on the wall where they're going to do like they probably did to you. They're going to say, all right, we need to get weekly testing, which makes no sense. So I can get tested on Monday. I can get COVID on Tuesday. Everybody's sick by Friday.
Yeah, exactly. Whole office sick by Saturday. Great.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. But so that will eventually turn into them saying things like it's not efficient, or the company won't pay for the testing anymore, or whatever it is. So therefore you need to get the mandatory vaccine. And but by that time, so a lot of the guys that I work with, they're like, the classic boiling frog. They're like, oh no, it's fine. We're going to just do the test. And it's like, yeah, no, it's 15 days.
Stops. This is where it starts.
Yeah. 15 days to slow the spread. It turns into take the triple shot or whatever it is. And yeah, so I don't see any future there anyway, but what can you do?
So either way, I mean, I don't know if it was part of the plan or if it just kind of happened to coincide, but like you starting this side business with your artwork and the merchandise, I mean, that's obviously going to be hopefully one thing that becomes more of a big revenue stream for you, so you can become more independent and you don't need to rely on these other companies and whatever mandates that they might come in. So why don't you dig into that a little bit? How did this whole thing start? I mean, how'd you start getting into creating this artwork? I mean, obviously the current work you do has nothing to do with that. So I'm just kind of curious where this all came from and how you got inspired to go down this path.
Yeah. Like I said, I started making designs for the guys at my job. They wanted some kind of designs, and I'm like, I can draw. So I had it like an old tablet, and I started
Has
drawing.
that been something that you did like since you were a kid, though? Just like basically just drawing for the hell of it, like.
Yeah, I've always been I have like my clay stuff over there. I've always been into art and drawing. I love the human form. I like Roman artwork, so I've always been drawing that. And then when I got like maybe junior high school, I was an art talent, and I gravitated towards anime, that kind of style, and like things like that. But it never even occurred to me to monetize it. It just or try to do anything to sell it. It was just something that I always did and just kind of enjoyed. So someone asked me, they were like, "Oh, can you make me this design for the shirt and the job?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I could do that." So I had a shitty tablet, made that design, figured out some print on demand stuff. Like I think I was using Printful at the time, which is like not so good quality. And the guys loved it.
What we
Sorry, I'll let you know what's a better.
No, it's all good. I mean, some of the shirts are good, and some of them are like, but the designs are great.
The designs are top notch. It really depends on like the color that you. This is an old shirt. This is still from Printful, and it still holds up. But so you see, it's black and white. But if you start doing more color, the color could be skewed or something, and then if you wash it too many times, it can get fucked up. It really depends. I found a good manufacturer after like so much trial and error. But yeah, so I did that with them. They loved it. So that was one thing. And then I started focusing on, rather than doing overtime, I could make money doing this as a separate stream of income, because time is super valuable. We don't have that much of it. And if I can monetize something without having to constantly be there on top of it, then that's the idea for me. So that happened. That was probably 5 years ago. And then, my interest in politics started happening. So I started to draw about liberty shit, about things that I enjoy, rather than doing like niche things like Mother's Day, Father's Day. It's just mundane, and you just do it over and over again. And it's like, I don't even care.
Hallmark's already got that stuff locked in anyway.
But you wouldn't believe, man. There's a crazy market in this. I made a coffee mug that just says like queef on it, and I sold it like 250 times. It's
wow.
Yeah. It's Times New Roman, queef. That's it. And yeah, so you'd be surprised. But I decided I'm not gonna do anything I don't want to do anymore. If it interests me, I'll draw it, and that's just what I want to do. And you'll be able to tell if I'm not interested in it. So, I think I made a design for Robbie the Fire initially, and he probably, I think he still has it as his header. It was like one of the first works that I did. He loved it, so I was like, that's cool. And then I did a design for Dave Smith as the Libertarian Tupac, where he's doing the scan cans. And
I've seen that one all over.
Yeah. He picked it up, and they sold it as like an exclusive on Gas Digital, which was like really cool. And from then on, I was like, oh, all right, there's something here. People like this stuff. Like, they like it enough that they'll use it. So I just like immersed myself like wholesale in it. And I'll tell you how I got to where I am now, why you probably know about me. Because my big break obviously came with Josh Smith.
Yeah.
So I was selling on Etsy, and I had the Read Mises Not Mark shirt. And I think his sister bought it for him as a Christmas gift, and she bought it in November. Yeah. And I saw
it right there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So it said to Josh Smith, but they sent it I was like, there's like, I don't think so. I don't think it's that guy. Because a lot of people buy shit. It was like, and it's a common name.
There's got to be a ton of Josh Smiths around that buy Read Mises Not Mark shirts. So.
You never know. Yeah. So I was like, I'm not going to like reach out and contact this person. I was like, okay, whatever. He reached out and contacted me, and he's like, hey, got this shirt. Love it. Thanks so much. And I was like, can I send you some more? He's like, sure. I sent him a couple more. He's like, these are dope. And then he started advertising my stuff. Then he said, he just mentioned briefly, like, thanks, man. I'll wear your shirt on my podcast. I'm starting. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I took it upon myself to draw his first logo, and I sent it. I said, here's a logo if you want to use it for your podcast. No pressure. Just here it is.
Right.
And he's like, that's awesome. Do you want to be my slave? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah. I'm only going to do like 2 episodes a week. And then it's like this week.
Whoops.
Yeah. This next
That's
week, I think
spiraled.
he's doing 6. So I'm like, oh shit, man. But yeah, that's kind of how it happened. Just happenstance. His sister bought this and he contacted me and I was like, wow, kind of crazy, you know?
That's
Put
wild. I
yourself
mean,
out there.
that's how you got to do it. I mean, that's how you got to, break into almost any industry. Although now I think if it's not illegal, I think it's probably frowned upon to be an intern at this point. You know, if there's a $15 minimum wage to do anything, but you know, I mean, that really classically is how you break into anything you want to do. You find someone that can use your help. You give them some of your product that helps you. You know, it gives you more work to do. It gets you doing more reps, and then also gets your product out there and gets you connected with someone else who's, you know, in the case of Josh, who's also growing something at the same time. So in certain ways, I mean, he was just breaking into podcasting. He'd done a little podcasting with Think Liberty, but you know, was his real push to make something out of it. And so you're both really trying to make something happen at the same time. So it's really just you know, it's a good situation for both of you where you can both, you know, apply your craft more, both get both of what you're doing out there more. I mean, you're providing him with just an amazing look that he probably wouldn't have without you. He might have something, but it wouldn't be the same vibe. It wouldn't be the same feel. And then at the same time, you're getting your logo and name out there. Like you said, I don't know if I would have come across you if it wasn't for Josh and, you know, seeing all your stuff on Josh's show. And then eventually we really connected when you made the Lions of Liberty anamorph version of Marc Clair that I have now used on several occasions. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, that was a fun one to do. But yeah, I described myself for the short time I was on Jose's podcast a couple days ago as like the feeder fish that kind of just follows the whale, you know. So like these podcast guys are whales, and I'm just like, hey, I'll do some drawings for you, nip off your back a little bit, and you know, I benefit, you guys benefit, and then you also I get to meet some like awesome people. Like just from doing this, I went to see Robbie the Fire yesterday. Last night for his comedy show. It was supposed to be Dave, but he had the baby, so
right.
he didn't show up. But Robbie still did something, and I'm walking down the block with my wife, and he goes, "Yo, TopLobsta," and it's like, oh shit, like he recognized it. It's pretty cool, man. You get to make these connections with people that otherwise I would have just been listening to you constantly, like in my truck or car, you know.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's been like the greatest part of podcasting too, are all the connections that I've made. I mean, I had lunch with Tom Woods in New Orleans over gumbo. I mean, that only happened because of this podcast. And, you know, maybe I could have met some of these people in other ways, but I mean, it certainly wouldn't have happened in the same way. And we certainly wouldn't have made the same connections that I have just through doing this podcast. There's a lot of other benefits, and that wasn't even on my mind when I started it, but it's become one of the best benefits is connect the people I've connected with. And I mean, I don't know if maybe I'd be physically in Mexico right now, but I don't know if I exactly would be really where I am now with the podcast if it wasn't for those connections either. So it's kind of a circular thing where you make more connections, and then that actually helps you doing what you're doing. And this applies to podcasting, it applies to your artwork, it applies to just about anything you want to do. And I think the reason I want to drive this home so much is because it can be intimidating sometimes to start a new venture, to start a new business, to start a new project. But at this point in time, and yes, Jason Sableton's Nomad Network is sponsoring this episode, so maybe I'll just tie it right into there. But you have to create, you know, some kind of mobile income that is yours, that you own. Because if it's not, then you are going to be subject to the whims and the irrational rules of others, of corporations, of governments, or what have you. And yeah, maybe we can never physically run away from it all, but we can create better situations for ourselves, where we can create a situation where maybe one day you don't need to take this job and follow whatever regulations they're trying to get you to do, whether it's a test or whether it's a vaccine, because you've got something else going on and you don't need it and you're in a better situation. And I just want to encourage everyone to, if you have any kind of like desire to do something else, but there's something holding you back, just do it. Because I didn't know what I was doing when I started this. Some would argue we had some audio issues going before we started the show, and it's been 8 years and I still have some issues sometimes to work through. So nothing's ever perfect, but you can do it. I mean, we're all made of the same flesh and blood and the same basic DNA. If other people are out there doing it, you can do it. And so just do it, you know, and then who knows how it happens. Maybe you connect with a version of a Josh Smith who is also on that same path, and then you kind of help lift each other up. You never really know where these things are going to go, but you have to start it, or you're never going to get started.
Yeah, it's like that, like the Bitcoin kind of thing. I think about it sometimes where, I don't know, a few years ago it was $16,000. Like, I don't want to start buying it now. And I think now it's back up to like 55 or something last night. It's like,
listen to this one. When I went back, I was going through my old back catalog, and I there was an interview I did with a guy named Trace Meyer. It was like, I think it was episode 18 of Lions of Liberty, and I was listening back to it. Oh, you know what it was? It was on, what is his name? The guy that does the Liberty reviews, and his name's Tyler Janke.
Tyler Janke, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to. It's escaping me what his actual channel is called, but he reviews Liberty. I think it's called Liberty Podcast Review or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why he played a clip from that one. So and with that guest, I asked him like, oh, so what's the price of Bitcoin right now? Because I really knew nothing about it, and he's like, it's about like $18, I think, right now. And then I was listening to this, and I'm thinking like, and I remember at the time, I remember after the interview, I was interested enough to kind of look into it. But this is before Coinbase. This is before it was like steps. It was hard to buy it. Like you had to go through some amount of steps, and I was like, I don't feel like it. And now I'm just like, God damn it, why didn't you just take an hour and figure out how to get a Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Anyway,
absolutely. And one more thing I wanted to add on to what you were saying is, I'm sure that you experienced with this, with the Lions of Liberty podcast, where you start this thing, maybe you start off hot, right? Because you're really inspired to do your podcast or whatever you're doing, your drawings, and then like nothing happens for a while, and it's stagnant. And
many months of, well, maybe not many months, but at least many weeks when we first started off of 30 downloads, 40 downloads.
Yeah.
Which can be deflating, but it can also, it's all about your mindset at the end of the day, because one thing that I used to do, I don't have to do it anymore because we have more than 30 people listening now, but even at that level, even with getting 30 people in, just picture yourself in a room with those 30 people that came to that room from all over the country or what have you to listen to what your conversation with someone else. When you think of it that way, it's like, oh, even 30 people is actually pretty cool. Like they went out of their way to listen to me talking to someone. Like even that is pretty cool. So, and then,
My wife doesn't even give a shit what I say. So it's like, I've got like 5 people listening. Like, this is awesome. Right. But yeah, when I first started doing the drawings, like specifically Liberty drawings, and just kind of putting them up on my old Twitter, like one like maybe from my friend that I knew, nobody cared. And I'm like, I think about it now, I'm like, why was I still like with so much fervor going back and drawing and learning how to do this shit and like really breaking my ass to do it? And I guess it pays off. I don't want to like take a victory lap, but it paid off for now at least. And I continue to make it I continue to want to make it bigger. So, there's times of stagnancy, and it's almost insanity if you keep doing the same thing over and over to the same results, but you kind of have to keep pushing. You have to break through, perfect your craft, and always continue to perfect it and grow it and see what it is. A lot of people quit right away, and it's a shame because you don't know what that could be. And
you got to do it all with, with your head up, your back straight, strutting like that TopLobsta, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good way to tie everything together and wrap things up. So before I let you go, it's pretty easy, TopLobsta.com, but I'll let you go ahead and plug that and anything else you'd like to mention on the way out. Is our discount code still active? Can we still use that one?
Probably.
We had it at one point.
Yeah, I didn't deactivate it, but I got to check. It's if there is, it's Roar.
Yeah. So you can probably, if he didn't deactivate it, so it should be good. Go to TopLobsta.com, take a little browse. You can get this hat, the Legalized Freedom hat. You can get all sorts of awesome shirts. I have that Scott Horton and the War shirt that I absolutely love. And I actually, like, no joke, I get compliments about that shirt all the time. I don't think the people complimenting me, like we were in Vegas a couple of weeks ago celebrating our anniversary, and multiple people stopped me and said like, oh, I love your shirt, man. Love it. Like people of all different walks of life. And I don't know who Scott Horton is, and maybe they kind of recognize the meme from Always Sunny or whatever, but people really do respond to that shirt in particular, I can say. And it's just really awesome to go walking around in a shirt and hear people saying like, hey, that's awesome, man. End the wars. Like a lot of people agree with that message of end the wars. It really does resonate. Yeah,
I don't want to hold you up, but yeah, when I make t-shirts, it's just to start a conversation. So people will see this and somebody might go, hey, hell yeah. Or yesterday I had my Dave Smith with the Anarchist Handbook flags coming out of his head as Rothbard shirt on. And somebody stopped me. I don't even think they were at the show. They were like, hey, I like that. It's like, I didn't want to talk to them at the time, but it's supposed to start a conversation and, and hopefully you could, plant seed and go from there. But so you can catch me at TopLobsta.com, TopLobsta _ on Twitter, TopLobsta with an A everywhere else. And I do have a Patreon with some tiers where I'm working on I have a phone and computer backgrounds like this and other things like that. and discount codes for the tiers. There's also, I'm working on a exclusive shirt just for the members. And I forget which tier, but one of the top tiers is a portrait by me. So you could join the likes of Marc Claire if you'd like.
You can be just like me. Well, thanks so much, Danny. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, telling us about your plans. We'll definitely be in touch, and maybe you'll see some more TopLobsta art on Lions Liberty down the road here. But until then, my man, keep up the great work. Keep on roaring.
Thank you, Marc.
Live long and live free.